Yeah, I mean, I could start with my origin story. I mean, it's
Let's
pretty,
do it.
very, yeah, very unique. My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town in Pennsylvania, drove into the town square. There he spotted two police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and critically wounding another. And eventually he was captured and brought to stand trial for what he had done, where he was facing the death penalty. And during the trial, my mom, who's pregnant with me, got up and testified to the jury that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that that police officer had raped her. And she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And my mom's testimony worked. The first trial ended in a hung jury. And eventually, because of my mom's testimony, the state dropped the death penalty. And eventually, my grandfather was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he eventually did spend the rest of his life, more than 40 years, behind bars, leaving behind, my mom, me now, and the rest of my mom's family. She was one of 15 children to kind of deal with the quake of what my grandfather had done in this small town.
Wow. Okay. Um, we got to get into a couple things that one. What was it like when you were a kid and your mom told you, or did she tell you the story about your grandfather? You want to see your grandfather. What's going on with that emotionally first?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know any different. I was born that way. My life didn't get any easier. Here I am, I'm born to a 15-year-old mother, which is hard enough. And then, growing up in this town where you and your family's, last name means so much. So you were always known as that family, and me specifically known as that kid. So, and I write about that, a lot of that in the Unlucky Sperm Club, my book. But, eventually my mom, she turns 21 and she meets, a peach of a man in a bar who eventually becomes my stepfather. And we quickly realize that he's an alcoholic. He's very physically and emotionally abusive. And, I'm dealing with that. And my mom and him have four children in quick succession. And because of the lifestyle that they're living, a lot of the basic needs of my siblings fall upon me as the oldest, diaper changing, bottle feeding, waking up at 2 a.m. to put crying babies back. And because of all the help that I'm giving my mom and the lifestyle, she'd rather me stay home from school and help her with babies than go to school. And I remember in the fourth grade, that last day of school, you go to school and you're excited to find out who you're going to have for fifth grade and if your buddies are going to be in the same homeroom as you. And I remember looking down at my report card and seeing that I had straight F's and that I had flunked the fourth grade. And it shouldn't have come to any surprise. I'd probably miss 50 or 60 days of school that year. The next year they placed me into special ed to try to get me the help that I need. I can't read, I can't write, I can't spell. Come to find out I have dyslexia. And, that's the way my life went until one day my stepfather was walking home drunk from a bar and somebody else was driving home drunk from that bar and they ended up hitting and killing him.
Wow.
And, leaving behind, here's my mom. My mom has dropped out of school in the eighth grade. She's never worked outside of the home. Here she has five small children to try to raise now on her own, as bad as it was with my stepfather. And it was totally brutal. My mom couldn't wrap her head around how she was going to care for all of us. And it was at this time that she decided she was going to take her own life. And my mom attempted suicide. Now, fortunately, she wasn't successful. But when she got out of the hospital, that's when she decided, my family was going to be split up. And that's when I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer. And for the first time in my life, my kind of basic survival instincts, there was always food at my Graham's house. There was always heat. The lights always turned on. I didn't have to worry about caring for babies, and I didn't have to worry about my stepfather coming home and beating me or my mom. And it was at this kind of that fork in the road, that this stage of my life where, I'm thinking, where am I going to end up? And I start thinking, this is not the life I want. And one day a counselor came from Penn State University to talk about, what you needed to do to get into college. And at this time of my life, I'm in about 7th grade at this time. And I start thinking, you know what, if I ever got a college degree, my life would be easy from that point on. At least that's what I thought, because here I'm coming from a family. My mom's one of 15 children. Only 2 of those kids had ever graduated high school.